In the annals of history, few events resonate with the chilling finality of the end of Russia's last imperial family. The story of Tsar Nicholas II, his wife Alexandra, and their 5 children is not merely a tale of royal downfall. It is the convergence of centuries of autocracy, the weight of revolution, and the cruelty of human hands that silenced a dynasty. This is not just history, it is tragedy, it is crime, and it is legend. The murder of the Romanovs in July 1918 is a story steeped in myth, shadowed by mystery, and immortalized in blood. But to truly understand what happened in that dimly lit basement in Ekaterinburg, we must journey back into the grandeur of the Russian Empire, the unraveling of its monarchy, the flames of revolution, and the chilling night where bullets, bayonets, and brutality ended 300 years of Romanov rule. Nicholas II was born into privilege, wealth, and destiny. The son of Tsar Alexander III, he inherited one of the largest empires in the world in 1894. Yet Nicholas, by temperament, was not a ruler molded for the pressures of empire. Gentle, reserved, even timid at times, he lacked the iron will and political instincts of his predecessors. He adored his family and cherished domestic life over matters of state. His wife, Alexandra Feodorovna, granddaughter of Queen Victoria of England, was a woman of fierce devotion but cold reserve. Their marriage was one of love, rare in dynastic unions. They produced 5 children: the elegant Olga, the studious Tatiana, the spirited Maria, the youngest and mischievous Anastasia, and the long-awaited heir Alexei. But Alexei was born with a curse. Hemophilia, the royal disease, left the boy vulnerable to even the smallest injuries. His bleeding could be fatal. Alexandra, desperate for salvation, turned to mysticism. It was through this desperation that a dark figure entered the royal household, a figure who would haunt the Romanov legacy forever: Grigory Rasputin. Rasputin, a Siberian peasant and wandering holy man, seemed to have an inexplicable ability to soothe Alexei's bleeding episodes. Alexandra believed God worked through him, and Rasputin's influence over the empress grew. Yet to the Russian people and nobility, Rasputin became a symbol of corruption, decadence, and the rot within the monarchy. Whispers of scandal surrounded him: orgies, drunkenness, and manipulation. Caricatures of Rasputin and Alexandra flooded underground presses. Nobles seized, the church recoiled, and Nicholas II, blinded by loyalty to his wife and trust in divine will, allowed the charlatan to remain close. To many Russians, Rasputin embodied everything wrong with the monarchy: out of touch, mystical, decadent, and dangerously misguided. By the time he was assassinated by noble conspirators in December 1916, the damage was irreversible. The Romanov image had collapsed. By 1914, the First World War erupted, a conflict that would seal Russia's fate. Nicholas, compelled by loyalty to allies and a misguided sense of honor, dragged his empire into the carnage. Russia was unprepared. Millions of peasants were thrown into battle without proper weapons, boots, or food. The front collapsed under the weight of German advances. Cities faced famine. Inflation skyrocketed. The people turned their anger not toward Germany, but toward their own Tsar. Nicholas made a fateful mistake. He left Petrograd to personally command the Russian army. It was a gesture of patriotism, but a disaster in governance. In his absence, Alexandra and Rasputin wielded influence at the palace, further alienating the nobility and infuriating the public. The people began to whisper revolution. In March 1917, February, by the old Russian calendar, hunger riots and protests exploded in Petrograd. Workers demanded bread. Soldiers, weary of war, joined the demonstrators instead of suppressing them. The monarchy, the very institution that had stood for 3 centuries, crumbled almost overnight. Nicholas, returning from the front, found his power had evaporated. His generals urged abdication. His advisors abandoned him. Even his beloved family could not be shielded. On March 15, 1917, Nicholas II signed his abdication. The Tsar of all the Russias, an empire spanning 11 time zones, surrendered his crown. For the first time since 1613, Russia was without a Tsar. The provisional government placed the Romanovs under house arrest at the Alexandra Palace. At first, their captivity was gentle. They retained servants, lived in relative comfort, and believed they might be exiled to England, where Nicholas's cousin King George V reigned. But politics shifted quickly. The Bolsheviks, radicals led by Vladimir Lenin, rose. In October 1917, they toppled the provisional government and seized power, promising peace, land, and bread. For them, the Romanovs were not merely dethroned monarchs, they were symbols of tyranny, potential rallying points for counter-revolution. the family was moved deeper into the Urals, first to Tobolsk, then finally to Ekaterinburg. Their conditions worsened. They lived under constant surveillance. Their meals grew sparse. They were cut off from loyalists and foreign allies. The once mighty Romanovs were now prisoners of the revolution. By summer 1918, the Russian Civil War raged between the Red Bolsheviks and the White Army loyalist and anti-Bolshevik forces. Ekaterinburg became a stronghold for the Reds, but the White Army drew near. The Bolsheviks feared the Romanovs might be rescued and used as a banner for counter-revolution. The decision was grim. The Ural Soviet, under orders direct or implied from Moscow, resolved to liquidate the Romanovs. Their deaths would ensure no monarchist restoration. The order was signed. The family's fate was sealed. In the early hours of July 17, 1918, Nicholas, Alexandra, their 5 children, and 4 loyal servants were awoken in the Ipatiev House. They were told they would be moved for safety as fighting approached. Sleepy, confused, they dressed quickly and gathered in a basement room. Chairs were brought for Alexandra and Alexei, too weak to stand. The children clutched small pillows, where secretly they had sewn precious jewels, diamonds, and rubies that would later serve as grim accidental armor. Nicholas stood, bewildered but composed. He asked when they would leave. The guard shuffled. The commandant, Yakov Yurovsky, entered with a written order. He read aloud, "Your relatives have tried to save you, but now it is no longer possible. You are condemned to death." The room erupted in chaos. Nicholas only managed to gasp, "What? What?" before bullets tore through the air. The execution was brutal, disorganized. The Tsar was shot first, Alexandra next, but the children, protected by jewels sewn in their corsets, did not die easily. Bullets ricocheted, bayonets were used, screams echoed in the cellar. It took 20 minutes of horror before silence fell. The Romanovs, Russia's last imperial family, lay slaughtered in a blood-soaked basement. The bodies were stripped, doused in acid, and buried in shallow graves in the forest. The Bolsheviks concealed the murders for years. To the outside world, rumors swirled had the family been moved. Were the children alive? Anastasia became the greatest legend of all. Claimants appeared across Europe, insisting they were the lost Grand Duchess who had escaped the massacre. Most were frauds, yet the myth endured for decades. It was only in the 1990s, after the fall of the Soviet Union, that the remains of the Romanovs were exhumed, identified through DNA, and laid to rest in St. Petersburg in 2000. The Russian Orthodox Church canonized Nicholas, Alexandra, and their children as martyrs. The murder of the Romanovs was more than a crime, it was a symbolic severing of Russia's past from its future. The monarchy was annihilated, the imperial family silenced, and the revolution cemented in brutality. The basement of the Ipatiev House became legend. The Romanovs, both martyrs and victims of a ruthless age, their story, told in whispers, photographs, and myth, continues to haunt Russia and the world. For in their 4 lies, a question that echoes through history. Could it have been different? Could mercy have prevailed over bullets? Or was the fate of the Romanovs always to end not with a crown, but with the crack of gunfire in the shadows of Ekaterinburg? Thank you for watching Crimes Through Time. If this story of the Romanovs' haunting final hours gripped you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history's darkest chapters. And tell us in the comments, do you think the Romanovs could have been spared and exiled abroad? Or was their brutal execution inevitable? We'll see you in the next episode. Until then, stay curious, stay safe,